JB here. Hope everyone's doing on Saturday, Monday, July 28th, 3:30. This Friday afternoon, talk really quick about the market. Some of the names I'm looking at go from there. S&P and Dow in slightly in the red, Nasdaq in the green, and kind of like a lackluster session. Just the difference between today and a lot of the other days is the market is melting slightly lower as opposed to melting slightly higher. The VIX is in the green. US dollar is up almost 1%, so strong rally there, but then yields are lower. Uh, yeah, just interesting stuff here. This morning, between the open and about 11 a.m., it was like a tenth of a percent trading range on the SPY. It was like 9:30, excuse me, 6:38 to like 6:37.06, somewhere in there. Uh, and then boom, things broke through. I have a chart. I have to go. I'll see if I can find it. I always bring this up every couple of years or whatever when there's low volatility. But it was like there was a summer. I think it was August of 2014, and the SPY traded in a tenth of a cent range for like 15 or 20 minutes, somewhere in there. Just insanity. So right now, imagine the SPY is trading at 636.03 right now. Imagine it traded between 636.03 and 636.04 for 15 or 20 minutes. Remarkable stuff. We saw it on GameStop a couple weeks or a month ago, where it was like someone put in either a buy order and people were hitting the sell and just couldn't get them cleared out, or the reverse. I don't know what it was, but someone kept that in a channel. So just interesting stuff. It kind of keeps things in perspective. But all things considered, where we were, especially I keep bringing up the April area, where I mean the volatility seems like eons ago. Maybe it comes back, right? I mean the summer, everybody's at the worst thing. All the big money makers are they're at the beach or on holiday, right? But uh, big week. We have earnings. You have the Fed, we have data, we have GDP, second quarter read, we have PCE data, then we have the jobs report on Friday. And the earnings this week are huge. Not only is it the four Mag 7 names, that Apple and Amazon, and then we have Meta and Microsoft, which probably going to get more color in tariffs and CapEx spend and AI and things like that. But then you have some outlier names, right? Uh, Tomorrow, do I have the list up for tomorrow? I keep forgetting. I think Visa's tomorrow, right? Do I? I don't know why I don't have this up here. Um, yeah. So, and none of these names are trading tomorrow, but always good to be mindful, right? After the close, you have Waste Management, CDNS, Canon Systems. That's more like an AI name, right? Tilray. Tomorrow's United Healthcare, right? That's a big one. So I'll talk about those in a second. Uh, but certainly going to be a big week. I sit here and on the watch list this morning, kind of my tone on the rant this morning is somewhat of caution, right? And 633 or so, we break under that. I'll look for some inexpensive hedges. At the same token, I'm not loaded to the gills in far out of the money calls in a lot of different names, and some of the names I'm in are already showing some weakness, like the Edit and CDLX, which already locked some profits in. So uh, yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense to hedge if you don't have a lot of call positions on, but if you're playing for downside, it's different. You don't really call it a hedge, right? Uh, but just watching 633 would be the spot. I mean, we're down here almost at the lows of the session on the spot, 635.88, but it's been like a slow melt. It hasn't been abrupt, but knock on wood, we still have 26 minutes to the day. Markets find some footing. Maybe we close down, you know, 0.2% or whatever, kind of get some of the greed out of it, right? You see everybody's posting about the fear and greed index. Every time we hit extremes, that's when people post and they could those that environment can last for longer than just when it hits a certain area, right? So always keep that in the back of your head. All right, so that's kind of the overall markets. That's what I watch on the SPY. And then this is, if you take a look, I mean, these are the candles over the last since July, and I think these are 20-minute candles, 2 hour candles, maybe this is. Uh, but just kind of shows you the market. It's been somewhat complacent outside of a couple of candles, and the big candles obviously was Powell being terminated, right? So that was a week and a half ago on that Wednesday. But you can see the candles almost identical from on the way down as they are on the way up on July 16th. So interesting stuff. It's like buyers are waiting. We'll see if we do get another setup. But don't forget that was the SPY was in the 620s and under 620. So do we get there again? I don't at some point maybe, but for now, uh, just have support resistance. We do break it. That's how I'm going to play it. All right. So that's kind of overall more. And then US dollar. Look at it today. Just a monster move. I don't know if that's some of it just because of the EU US deal. Is that putting strength back in the dollar? Oh my gosh, everybody was fleeing the US dollar because the US dollar and the economy in the US because of tariffs and all the negative stigma around the US. It wasn't a safe haven asset anymore. And it's funny how that'll change at some point, right? All right, so that's kind of overall market. Now, just quick on individual names. I did two spec trades today. So at the open, and I had on the watch list the past couple weeks in regards to getting earnings builds on some of these names: the TTD, Roku, Align, MDB, and Dexcom. Those are a couple of names off the top of my head. RH. So finally, TTD was showing relative strength again today. So I went and got some spec calls, and some of it, I was looking between Roku and TTD, and Roku reports at the end of the week, and I'm like, oh, look at the premiums, risk reward on the TTD. They looked inexpensive on a risk reward basis. You had some boutique analysts adjusting their sell rating price target from like 37 to 47, so it was almost made me kind of it's comical. Hey, maybe they're right. I don't know. But they won't report till next week. But some of it could be a sympathy move with Roku, because Roku's gonna, when they announce earnings Thursday after the close, a lot of their business, and they have a partnership with TTD and a partnership with Amazon now that's gonna come online, I guess, at the end of the year. It's around the ad spend, right? TTD is like that conduit for all the marketers for ad spend. So if Roku shows positive numbers, that's typically have a solid read through on TTD. Who knows? We'll see how that plays out. But so I got those spec lottos. You look, type Bollinger Band set up 200-day moving average right at 91.27. So if there's follow through tomorrow into the 90s, I could see it trading into mid 90s into mid end of the week. So that's the thought process there in TDD. And then, I'm watching Roku all day, and Roku typically it does the run and gun at the open, the fade, and it just disappoints, right? And typically you get the chasers getting the calls at the open, and then it just gives the gains back and then some. But then it held the gains, well, dipped at about 11 o'clock and then off to the races again. It's not moving too fast, but it's up nearly 4% here today. Not much in the way of catalyst. You do have like a Wedbush note out this morning, reiterating outperform rating, $100 price target. I don't know if that's doing too much, but anyway, the premiums are should hold up, right? So that's one thing, and two is the volatility on the name. So as we get close to the earnings, I think the premiums are going to continue to creep in. It's a name. You look back, it's past earnings. It hit 104. And then there was a little gyrations. Then the next day, 102. So those are the key areas I'll be watching on Roku. I think if we get up into the 100s tomorrow, Wednesday, I think that sets things up nicely for at least maybe a pre-earnings high into the event Thursday after the close. So the thought process: lock some in to cover costs, ride the rest. If I can't, I'll lock them in. The thing is, I have plenty of time, right? So if I get stuck, we've seen crazy moves on, last earnings similar. Roku's laid some eggs on earnings, and they've had some serious swings too. So if there's a serious swing, it could be 125, 130, 140. So that's kind of in the back of my head. That's why I went with some monthlies, hold some premium. And that's kind of the thought process and plan on that. So then just some other names here. Joby finally, I should say finally. I mean, the stock was up substantial. I mean, it was $8 back in June. So actually almost late June. So to see it continue to hold its gains, like, I'm not saying I'm surprised that it found some FOMO, or I wouldn't even call it FOMO, because at some point, if it starts generating revenue, it's going to be $17. It's going to be like in the history books, right? You're going to be like, wow, it used to be $17. But for now, I mean, even it's moved, to see it hold, considering the short interest, the volatility before, surprising. So at some point here, it is down close to 6%. If it gets, I was talking last week, if it fills that gap 14.95, that's kind of the area I would look to load some more. On the flip side, this morning I was looking, if it broke all-time highs and held, I would look for some calls played for $20. Wouldn't rule out another, this is the dip and then it bounces tomorrow. Wouldn't rule out there'll be continuation down to 14.95 tomorrow. If it does get to 14.95 and holds, I'll look for some more strikes. But Joby, that's the Joby trade there. Not much here to add on Serve. I mean, it's down like a little, excuse me, little less than 2%. But look at the consolidation, and now it's like tight setup here on the candles. Like at some point, I always talk about the tight Bollinger Bands being a tug of war, and that's kind of how, when I look at a chart and you see the tight candles on decent volume, or at least hanging in there, that's typically what and we got some spam in the room, so that's typically what I look at. So that's Serve, still like that one. 13.95, then up to 18. Those are some spots there. And then some other names reporting. Oh, Spotify reports tomorrow morning, right? And I hate to be like the negative guy. I mean, I was a huge bull on Spotify in the 200s and below. I mean, if you're in the rants or in the room or the watch list, of course, in hindsight, you just go and you could have got the 500 strikes out of the money, way out the money. Well, they probably didn't exist and just held on to them. But Spotify has always been a great story, and people used to do the bearish spin because they didn't generate profits. It was all about just a user growth kind of situation, and folks always thought there was no moat around a business, and that's all been proven wrong. It's almost like satellite radio back in the day. Nobody ever thought that it would be their relevance will remain, and the company, bankrupt, then Sirius and XM merged, and like the whole. So that, I'm not saying it was the best analogy to compare with Spotify, but that's what I used to do back in the day. But now you look at the earnings and you look at the Netflix reaction, I'm like, gosh, I'm not trading it, but if I did, I'm like, they might pull, right? So 600, I don't know, but so that's Spotify. That'll be interesting tomorrow morning. And then United Healthcare too. It's another one of those names you look at. It's a beaten the heck. But like if you think of it as like a fundamental growth story, I don't think that's what UNH is about anymore. It's a negative story, right? It's just there's such a dark cloud around it regards to the investigations, regard to the tragic events with the CEO, and just like that negative stigma around the whole healthcare insurance space as a whole, right? And they're kind of like the poster child for what goes bad in healthcare. So I don't know, even if it's like a beat and raise, like what would get you excited about United Healthcare besides the fact that it was a $600 stock back in April, and that to me, that's not like a bull case, having the stock coming all the way down and then having some things to get excited about, new initiatives or catalysts or things like that. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here. But hopefully, if someone has a lot of calls, I hope it pays out from 200, a 50-day moving average right there at $300. Could be one of those names that goes, and you have some gaps to fill on the way up, which makes it attractive too. So, but when I'll stay away, I'll eat my popcorn and watch that one. But that's just kind of my thoughts there. And then last but not least, here's PayPal. And my thoughts on PayPal. I love PayPal. That has a gap up near 89 bucks in February. All gaps must fill. We'll see. We'll find out with United Healthcare and PayPal tomorrow morning. But another one of those stories like boggles my mind. The innovation of transactions, and here's PayPal can't even get back to highs, and you have Visa and MasterCard is going nuts. And I know there are different stories. They're more mature. Cash cows ability to transition to different initiatives, and they do have their hands in other things outside of just transactions. But I'm like, how is PayPal not just back? Oh, well, not all-time highs in COVID, but you have to think. But that if that was going to trade one, if I had to grab something in the next 17 minutes, maybe some PayPal calls, but hopefully that one goes bonkers too. And that's it. I'm not going to be overly aggressive today. I don't know if I'll be too crazy tomorrow unless I see some decent opportunities. Still love Edit and CDLX here. I mean, Edit's down here $3. CDLX reports earnings next week, so I'm not going to do anything unless I'm able to lock some more in for profits. And Dexicom just been hanging around $89 here, $89.55 for almost the whole day. Almost got to $90. And it's just the disappointing thing with Dexcom. The premiums are just not going up as much as I thought they would. But we'll see what happens if it breaks over 90. Let's see here. Maybe I should have got out to August 15th strikes. Oh, actually, the green. What am I looking at? So the premiums came. Is there volume? 3,300 calls, 5,500 puts. All right. Let's have a great day, folks. I'll be back. Rock and roll.